Welcome to part 2 on the male identity crisis. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about changing gender roles. So in living memory, we had this idea that kind of men were the providers that went out to work and women were the homemakers that stayed at home and looked after the children. Now, it's really important to consider that this is a recent phenomenon. It's developed since the Industrial Revolution. So back when we were agrarian societies, i.e. everyone was a farmer, basically everyone worked on the farm. Didn't matter whether you were a man or a woman or a child. If a harvest needed doing, you'd go out and do it. And life was very kind of countryside based. We didn't all live in these big cities. Then the Industrial Revolution came and it changed everything. Suddenly people were working in factories, everyone was coming to big cities. And then we've seen the evolution over the past 150 years. And what that's changed is that we've gone from this society where kind of everyone helped out to we've briefly had this idea of traditional gender values where men go out to work and women stay at home. They've existed in some form before that, but this was a really big change for society. But it hasn't always been like that. And sometimes we get told, well, that's just how it is naturally that women stay at home and men go out to work. But this idea is fairly recent. And so then we all lived in these big towns, these big societies. And from that, kind of women being expected to stay at home and not included in public life in these big cities, what we saw out of that was a really strong feminist movement arise. And that's been really good at identifying the toxic influence of the patriarchy. But what I think sometimes gets missed on this is just how toxic the patriarchy is for basically everyone. Because the patriarchy benefits a small group of rich white men. So if you are a Donald Trump, if you are an Elon Musk, you benefit hugely from the patriarchy. But most people have a bad time in the patriarchy, and that includes working class white men. That includes boys that are really struggling in school, that are not born into this privilege. Now, does that mean that working class men have it the hardest? Absolutely not. The people on the bottom of the pile are those minorities at the intersection of multiple discriminations, right? But the idea that a working class kid who doesn't get on well in school is going to really benefit from the current setup really isn't the case. It's a small group of rich white men that's getting almost all of the benefit. Everyone else is getting hurt by it. The people most getting hurt are those people at the bottom of the pile, women, minorities, people of colour. But working class white men are getting hurt by this a lot as well. And at the same time, they're being told they're part of the problem, right? That men are part of the problem, that they've created this patriarchy, that they're abusing everyone else, but they're actually the victims of it. Not to the same degree as other people, but again, you go back to this idea of working class kid that struggles in school. They're not seeing all of this privilege, and so they're noticing that their life is really hard, right? They haven't got this super well-paid job. They haven't gone to Oxbridge for their university degree, and yet they're being told that everything is their fault, and they're saying, well, you know, my life sucks, and I'm being told that I have all of this privilege, and I don't see it because my life is crap. Now, it's absolutely true that we do have a lot of privilege. But again, the way that society is shaped now is it really benefits the people at the top and it doesn't benefit the people at the bottom. So men have really got this conflicting narrative now where their life has been getting worse, and we'll talk a bit about more of that in a later video. And at the same time, they feel like they're being blamed for all of this stuff. The other thing that's been really positive about the feminist movement, but also still needs addressing, is that legislation has given women far more equal rights. Not entirely equal yet, there is still work to do on his, but like, for example, you couldn't not give someone a job openly because they're a woman. You used to be able to do that. And that kind of discrimination has been stamped out. Still work to do, but what we also see is that legislation for men is lagging behind. So, for example, when I tried to apply for child benefit in Ireland, the state of Ireland said, no, you're a man. We're not giving it to you. We don't give it to dads unless there's an exceptional circumstance. You need to get your wife to apply for it. Now, the way we balance our administration is I tend to handle all of that stuff, but I literally wasn't allowed by law to get this stuff sorted because apparently that's a mum's job. And just to give you another example, when my daughter was young, typically all of the changing tables are in the women's toilets and there often aren't any in the men. Or if we look at when families split up, there's still typically this presumption that the kids might go with the mum. It's getting better, but it's still an issue, and many services will still contact mum as the default rather than dad, or allowing people to assign a primary parent or contacting them both ideally. So again, what we found is that there's changing gender roles here where men are expected to step up, and it's no longer our job to be the provider. We've also got to be the family man as well. But the legislation to support us, to enable us to do that, hasn't caught up yet. So we've seen a ton of positive changes recently in terms of gender inequality and really great things to come out of feminism. But maybe one of the side effects there is that we need to do further work to support men, because we've gone from this kind of role that only briefly existed in history, of course, but did exist for a little bit and in living memory of being the provider, to now that we want an equal society, but we're not quite enabling men to do that.